TIFU FIL called me trash at family dinner, so I cut them all off. TIFU by discovering my future father-in-law has been calling me trash behind my back for 2 years. The wine glass shattered against the marble floor, red liquid spreading like blood across the pristine white stone. Every conversation in the dining room stopped. 20 pairs of eyes turned to stare at me, and I realized with crystal clarity that I had just thrown a glass of Bordeaux at Richard Henley III, my fiancé's father, successful businessman, and apparently, the man who'd been calling me trailer trash behind my back for the past 2 years. "You're absolutely right, Mr. Henley," I said, my voice eerily calm despite my hands shaking. "I don't belong with people like you." Let me back up. 3 hours earlier, I was actually excited about tonight. Jake and I had driven up from the city to his parents' estate in Greenwich for what I thought was just another family dinner. I'd spent weeks planning the perfect outfit, a navy dress that looked expensive but came from Target, paired with the pearl earrings Jake gave me for my birthday. I'd practiced talking points about my new marketing position, hoping to finally bridge the gap between me and his family. I should have known something was wrong when Jake's cousin Miranda kept giving me these weird, pitying looks during cocktail hour. But I was too busy trying to charm Jake's Aunt Helen, complimenting her garden and laughing at his uncle's terrible golf jokes. The same routine I'd been perfecting for 2 years, trying to prove I deserved to be there. The dinner started normally enough. Jake's mom, Patricia, made small talk about wedding venues while his father discussed some business acquisition. I smiled, nodded, contributed when appropriate. I thought I was doing well. I thought they were finally warming up to me. Then Jake excused himself to take a work call. Big mistake. That's when Miranda leaned over, wine clearly loosening her tongue, and whispered, "You know, I think you're handling all of this really well." If my future father-in-law was calling me trailer trash at the country club, I'd have lost it by now. The fork fell from my hand. "What did you say?" Miranda's face went white. "Oh God. You didn't know, did you?" The table had gotten louder, wine flowing freely. Richard was holding court at the head of the table, gesturing expansively as he told some story about his college days. But all I could hear was Miranda frantically whispering apologies, explaining how she'd overheard him at the club last week, talking to his golf buddies about how his son was slumming it with some foster kid and how I was exactly the kind of trash that gives good families a bad name. "He said Jake would come to his senses eventually," Miranda whispered, looking sick. "He's been telling people you're just a phase." 2 years. 2 years of Sunday dinners where I bit my tongue when they made jokes about public school education. 2 years of listening to Patricia's passive-aggressive comments about unconventional backgrounds. 2 years of thinking I was paranoid when I felt their judgment, of Jake telling me I was being too sensitive. 2 years of killing myself to prove I was worthy of their acceptance, only to discover they'd been laughing about me behind my back the entire time. I stood up abruptly, my chair scraping against the hardwood. The wine glass was in my hand before I'd even made a conscious decision to pick it up. Richard looked up at me, mid-story, with that same condescending smile he'd been giving me for 2 years. "Is there something you'd like to share with the class?" he asked, chuckling at his own wit. That's when I threw the wine. The silence that followed was deafening. Red wine dripped from Richard's face onto his crisp white shirt, and for a moment, he looked so stunned I almost felt satisfied. Almost. Then his expression shifted to pure rage. "You little," he shot up from his chair, wine-stained napkin clutched in his fist. "How dare you? In my own home." "Richard." Patricia gasped, but whether she was horrified by his language or my actions, I couldn't tell. "No, Patricia. I'm done pretending." His voice was getting louder, drunker. 2 years I've watched this charity case parade around here like she belongs. 2 years of biting my tongue while Jake throws his life away on some damaged goods from the system. Each word hit like a physical blow. Around the table, I could see the family's faces, some shocked, some embarrassed, but tellingly, none of them were defending me. Jake's uncle was studying his plate like it held the secrets of the universe. His Aunt Helen had gone pale. Even Miranda, who'd accidentally started this whole mess, was shrinking into her chair. "You want to know what I really think?" Richard continued, emboldened by the wine and apparently 2 years of pent-up resentment. "I think you're a gold-digging opportunist who saw an easy mark in my son. You saw the house, the cars, the lifestyle, and decided to latch on like a parasite." My throat was closing up, but I forced the words out. "That's not true." "Isn't it?" He laughed, a cold, ugly sound. "What exactly do you bring to this family? What's your contribution? You work in marketing, selling lies for a living, how appropriate. Your parents? Unknown. Your education? State school charity case. Your connections? Non-existent." I wanted to scream that I'd worked 3 jobs to put myself through college. That I'd studied until 3 a.m. while my classmates partied because I couldn't afford to fail. That every opportunity I'd gotten, I'd earned through sheer determination and grit they couldn't even comprehend. Instead, my voice came out small and broken. "Jake loves me." "Jake thinks he loves you," Richard corrected. "But love fades. What doesn't fade is where you come from. You can put on all the nice dresses you want, learn which fork to use, practice your little small talk, but you'll always be what you are. You'll never be good enough for this family." That's when I heard the front door slam. Jake's voice carried from the foyer. "Sorry about that, the client was being..." His words died as he appeared in the doorway, taking in the scene. His wine-soaked father. The shattered glass. My tear-stained face. The table full of relatives who couldn't meet his eyes. What the hell happened here? The family erupted in overlapping explanations. Patricia was fussing over Richard's shirt. Miranda was apologizing to everyone. Uncle Charles was muttering something about unfortunate misunderstandings. But Richard cut through it all with brutal clarity. "Your girlfriend had a little tantrum when she couldn't handle some honest conversation." Jake looked at me, confused and hurt. "Sarah? You threw wine at my father?" In that moment, I realized something that broke my heart all over again. Jake wasn't asking why his father had provoked me. He wasn't demanding to know what had been said. His first instinct was to assume I was the problem. 2 years together, and when forced to choose a side, he automatically chose theirs. "Ask your cousin what she told me," I said quietly. "Ask her what your father has been saying about me at the country club." Jake's face went through a series of expressions: confusion, dawning realization, and then something that looked almost like resignation. Miranda? His voice was strained. Miranda looked like she wanted to disappear. Jake, I'm sorry. I thought she knew. Miranda's voice was barely a whisper as she repeated what she'd told me: the country club conversations, the trailer trash comments, Richard's certainty that Jake would come to his senses eventually. With each word, I watched Jake's face change. The confusion melted into horror, then anger, but I couldn't tell who that anger was directed at. Richard, apparently realizing his carefully constructed facade was crumbling, decided to double down instead of backing off. So what if I said those things? He was swaying slightly, the wine making him reckless. Someone had to be realistic about this situation. You think I was going to stand by and watch my son ruin his future? Dad, stop talking. Jake's voice was tight, controlled in a way that meant he was barely holding it together. No, I will not stop talking. Not in my own house. Richard turned to face his son directly. You're 30 years old, Jake. You should be with someone who can be a true partner, someone with connections, with family wealth, someone who can help build your career instead of dragging it down. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. Dragging it down? Patricia finally spoke up, her voice sharp with panic. Richard, you've had too much wine. Perhaps we should finally have this conversation, Richard interrupted. Do you know what people say when they see you two together? They don't see a power couple. They see my son playing house with a help. The cruelty of it took my breath away. But what destroyed me wasn't Richard's words. I was starting to understand that his opinion of me had been poisoned from day one. What destroyed me was watching the rest of the family's reactions. Jake's uncle was nodding slightly, like he agreed but wished it wasn't being said out loud. Patricia's horror seemed less about the sentiment and more about the public nature of it. Even Jake's younger sister Emma, who I thought actually liked me, was staring at her hands like she couldn't bear to watch but also couldn't bring herself to defend me. 2 years of family barbecues. 2 years of birthday celebrations and holiday gatherings. 2 years of thinking I was slowly but surely becoming part of their world. I'd been performing for an audience that had already decided I wasn't worth the price of admission. Jake. My voice sounded foreign to my own ears. Say something. He was staring at his father with an expression I couldn't read. When he finally looked at me, I saw something that made my chest tighten with dread. There was love there, yes, but also something else. Something that looked dangerously like shame. Sarah, you have to understand, he's drunk, he doesn't mean. Doesn't mean what? The words came out sharper than I intended. Which part doesn't he mean? The part where I'm trailer trash? The part where I'm dragging down your career? Or the part where you'll eventually come to your senses and dump me? That's not. Jake ran his hands through his hair, looking trapped. You're twisting this. I'm twisting this? I stared at him in disbelief. Your father just called me a gold-digging parasite who will never be good enough for this family, and somehow I'm the one twisting things? You threw wine at him. There it was. The thing I'd been dreading but somehow expecting. When pushed to choose, Jake was choosing them. Maybe not consciously, maybe not maliciously, but he was choosing their comfort over my dignity. The fight went out of me all at once. The anger, the hurt, the desperate need to defend myself, it all just evaporated, leaving behind something much worse. Clarity. I looked around the table one more time, seeing them all clearly for perhaps the first time. Then I picked up my purse and headed for the door. Sarah, wait. Jake called after me. I didn't turn around. I made it exactly 3 blocks before my legs gave out. Not from exhaustion, from the weight of everything that had just happened crashing down on me at once. I sat on some stranger's perfectly manicured curb in my Target dress and Jake's birthday pearls, and finally let myself cry. My phone buzzed incessantly. Jake calling, texting, probably panicking now that the shock had worn off. But I couldn't bring myself to look at the messages. What was there to say? That he was sorry his family thought I was human garbage? That he'd try to make them understand? That deep down, he didn't agree with them at all? The worst part was that I wasn't even sure I believed that last one anymore. When the Uber finally arrived, the driver took one look at my mascara-streaked face and wisely didn't attempt small talk. The hour-long ride back to our apartment gave me plenty of time to think, which turned out to be a special kind of torture. I kept replaying moments from the past 2 years, seeing them through this new lens. Patricia's suggestion that I might be more comfortable helping in the kitchen during parties. Richard's habit of introducing me to his friends as Jake's girlfriend without my name. The way conversations seemed to die when I entered rooms. The careful way they asked about my background while sharing stories about their own family histories going back generations. I'd attributed it all to normal new relationship awkwardness. I'd told myself they just needed time to get used to me. I'd actually believed that persistence and politeness would eventually win them over. God, I'd been so naive. By the time I reached our building, I had 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. I scrolled through them in the elevator, watching Jake's tone evolve from confusion to panic to anger and back to desperation. Sarah, please call me back. Where did you go? I'm worried. Look, I know tonight was fucked up, but we can fix this. My dad was drunk and saying things he didn't mean. You can't just disappear every time we have a fight. That last message stopped me cold. Every time we have a fight, this wasn't a fight about whose turn it was to do dishes or whether we should spend Christmas with his family or mine. This was his father systematically destroying my character to anyone who would listen while his entire family stood by and let it happen. And Jake was calling it a fight. I walked into our apartment, the one bedroom we'd been sharing for 8 months, the space where I'd actually started to believe we were building something real together. My engagement ring caught the light from the hallway, and I stared at it like I'd never seen it before. Jake had proposed 3 months ago on the beach in Montauk. Nothing fancy, nothing that would impress his family's social circle, just him and me and a sunset and a promise that we were going to build something better than what either of us had grown up with. I'd cried when he slipped the ring on my finger, but they'd been happy tears. Hope tears. Now it just felt heavy. My phone rang again. Jake's name flashed on the screen, along with a photo of him laughing at something I'd said during a weekend trip to Vermont. Back when I thought his family's coolness toward me was just a matter of time and patience. I let it go to voicemail. Then I did something I'd never done in my entire adult life. I called in sick to work for the next day. Not because I was physically ill, but because I couldn't imagine sitting through meetings and client calls while pretending everything was normal. While pretending I hadn't just discovered that the man I wanted to marry came from a family who saw me as a charity case at best, a threat at worst. I was exhausted from trying to prove I deserved basic human dignity. And for the first time since Jake and I started dating, I wondered if maybe Richard was right about one thing. Maybe I really didn't belong with people like them. The question was, what was I going to do about it? I spent the night on the couch, fully dressed, staring at the ceiling and listening to Jake's key in the lock at 2:47 a.m. He moved quietly through the apartment, probably hoping I was asleep. I heard him pause outside the bedroom, then the soft click of the guest bathroom door closing. He was giving me space. Under normal circumstances, I might have appreciated the gesture. These weren't normal circumstances. The next morning, I could hear him moving around the kitchen, the careful sounds of someone trying not to wake a sleeping person. The coffee maker gurgling. The gentle clink of a mug. When I finally sat up, my neck screaming from the awkward angle I'd slept at, Jake appeared in the doorway like he'd been waiting. He looked terrible. His hair was sticking up in the back, his eyes were red-rimmed, and he was wearing the same clothes from dinner. In his hands, he held 2 mugs of coffee, mine prepared exactly the way I liked it, with oat milk and a dash of cinnamon. "Can we talk?" His voice was hoarse. I accepted the coffee but didn't answer. The silence stretched between us like a chasm. "Sarah, I'm so sorry about last night." What my father said was completely out of line, and I should have shut it down immediately. The words sounded rehearsed, like he'd been practicing them since he got home. I was in shock, and I handled it terribly. I took a sip of coffee. It was perfect, which somehow made everything worse. "How long have you known?" "Known what?" "Don't." The sharpness in my voice made him flinch. "Don't make me spell it out." "How long have you known what your family really thinks of me?" Jake sat heavily in the armchair across from me, suddenly looking older than his 30 years. "I've had suspicions. Little comments here and there. But I thought they'd come around once they got to know you better." "Suspicions." I repeated the word like it tasted bitter. "And you never thought to mention these suspicions to me? You just let me keep showing up to family dinners where everyone was secretly laughing at me?" "They weren't laughing at you. Miranda heard your father calling me trailer trash at the country club, Jake." "The country club? How many people do you think heard him? How many of your family friends have been looking at me like I'm some kind of social experiment for the past 2 years?" He dropped his head into his hands. "I don't know." "You don't know, or you don't want to know?" When he looked up at me, there were tears in his eyes. "Both. Maybe both." At least he was being honest now. It was a small comfort, but I'd take what I could get. "I love you," he said quietly. "That has to count for something." "Does it?" I set down my mug and pulled my knees to my chest. "Because last night, when your father was systematically destroying me in front of your entire family, your first instinct wasn't to defend me. It was to defend him. That's not. You threw wine at my father. That's what you said. Not what did he say to you? Not are you okay? Your first concern was that I'd been rude to the man who just called me a gold-digging parasite." Jake's face crumpled. I was processing. I was trying to understand what happened. "And what conclusion did you come to?" The question hung in the air between us. I watched him struggle with it, watched him try to find an answer that wouldn't damn him completely. But we both knew there wasn't one. "I think," he said finally, "that my family has serious problems. And I think I've been a coward for not addressing them sooner." It wasn't enough. We both knew it wasn't enough. But it was a start. "What happens now?" I asked. His phone buzzed on the coffee table. Then again. And again. We both stared at it like it was a bomb about to explode. "They want to talk," he said without checking the messages. "I bet they do." The messages kept coming. Every few minutes, Jake's phone would light up with another notification, another family member trying to manage the fallout from last night. By noon, my own phone had started buzzing too. "They have your number?" Jake looked surprised, almost hurt that I seemed shocked by this. "Your mother asked for it months ago." "For family coordination," I said, using air quotes. I thought it was sweet. I thought it meant I was being included. The first text from Patricia was perfectly crafted. "Sarah, I hope you're feeling better this morning. Perhaps we could have lunch this week to discuss last night's unfortunate misunderstanding." Misunderstanding. As if Richard's 2-year campaign of calling me trash was just a simple mix-up that could be solved over Caesar salads and white wine. The second text came from Emma, Jake's sister. "K, last night was super awkward, but don't let Dad's drunk rambling get to you. He says stupid shit when he's wasted." I showed Jake the messages. His jaw tightened as he read them. "They're trying to manage this," he said. "Manage what, exactly?" "You. The situation. The potential scandal." He rubbed his temples. "God, I sound like them." That's when my phone rang. Not a text this time, an actual call from a number I didn't recognize. I almost declined it, but something made me answer. "Sarah-chan?" The voice was crisp, professional. "Yes?" "This is Victoria Henley Morrison, Jake's aunt. We met at the Easter brunch?" I remembered her. Patricia's sister, the one who'd spent most of that brunch discussing her daughter's wedding to a senator's son and making subtle digs about modern relationships and unconventional choices. I remember. Good. I'm calling because I think there's been a significant overreaction to what happened last night, and I'd like to help resolve this before it gets out of hand. I put the phone on speaker so Jake could hear. His face went pale. "I'm not sure what you mean by overreaction," I said carefully. "Well, Richard had too much to drink and said some things he shouldn't have. But throwing wine and storming out was rather dramatic. These things happen in families, dear. The important thing is moving past it gracefully." Jake was shaking his head frantically, mouthing hang up, but I couldn't. I was mesmerized by the audacity of it. What exactly would moving past it gracefully look like? I asked. A simple apology would suffice. Richard is prepared to acknowledge that his phrasing was unfortunate, and we'd all appreciate it if you could do the same regarding your outburst. My outburst. These misunderstandings can be quite damaging to family harmony, Sarah. And with the Blackstone merger coming up, well, Richard can't afford any negative publicity right now. I'm sure you understand. Click. I hung up. Jake was staring at me. The Blackstone merger? I grabbed my laptop and started typing. Richard Henley 3, Henley Consulting, Blackstone merger. The search results painted a clear picture, a potential acquisition that would triple the size of Richard's firm and set up Jake's entire family financially for generations. They're not worried about your feelings, I said, still scrolling through articles. They're worried about their money. Jake's phone rang. His father's name flashed on the screen. Don't answer it, I said. I have to. If I don't, he'll just keep. Then what? You'll let him explain why calling me trash was actually a compliment? You'll nod along while he tells you how to manage your hysterical girlfriend? Jake stared at the ringing phone. On the 7th ring, it went to voicemail. Immediately, it started ringing again. Turn it off, I said. Sarah. Turn it off, or I'm leaving. Right now. He powered down the phone. In the sudden silence, I realized something had shifted. The power dynamic between us, the careful balance we'd maintained for 2 years, it was cracking. And for the first time since I'd known Jake, I wasn't sure if that was good or bad. What do you want me to do? He asked quietly. It was the right question, but it came about 12 hours too late. I want you to choose, I said, the words coming out steadier than I felt. Me or them. But you don't get both anymore. Jake's face went white. That's not fair. You can't make me choose between. Between what? Between your girlfriend and the people who think she's human garbage? I stood up, meeting the distance. Because that's what this is, Jake. Your father didn't just insult me last night. He's been systematically undermining our relationship for 2 years, and your entire family has been complicit. It's not that simple. It is that simple. I was surprised by how calm I sounded. Either you stand with me, or you stand with them. There's no middle ground anymore. Jake's phone, even powered off, seemed to loom between us on the coffee table like an unexploded bomb. We both knew the second he turned it back on, the pressure would start again. The family management. The damage control. The careful choreography of getting everything back to normal. Normal. Where I smiled and nodded while they tolerated me. Where I bit my tongue during their casual classism because making waves wasn't worth the fight. Where I slowly died inside trying to earn acceptance from people who had decided I wasn't worth it before they'd even met me. What does choosing you mean? Jake asked quietly. The question broke something open in my chest. After everything that had happened, after 2 years together, he had to ask what choosing me would look like. It means you tell your family that their behavior is unacceptable. It means you stop making excuses for them. It means if they can't treat me with basic respect, then you don't subject me to them anymore. I paused, watching his face. It means you protect me instead of protecting their feelings. And if I can't do that? There it was. The admission I'd been dreading but expecting. Jake wasn't asking because he didn't understand what I needed. He was asking because he wasn't sure he could give it to me. Then we're done. The words hung in the air between us. I watched Jake process them, watched him realize I wasn't bluffing or being dramatic. This wasn't a negotiating tactic. This was me drawing a line in the sand after 2 years of letting that line get moved further and further back. Sarah, please. You're talking about ending our relationship over one bad night. One bad night? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Jake, this isn't about one bad night. This is about 2 years of me trying to earn something that was never going to be given freely. This is about you knowing your family had problems with me and deciding it was easier to manage my feelings than to address their behavior. His phone buzzed against the coffee table, even though it was supposed to be off. The screen lit up with a text notification, *emergency. Call immediately. Dad *. We both stared at it. Then another text appeared, *. The Blackstone people are asking questions. We need to contain this *. Contain this, I repeated. Not fix it. Not make amends. Contain it. Jake picked up the phone, his thumb hovering over the power button. I could see the war playing out on his face, loyalty to his family versus loyalty to me. 2 years of history with them versus 2 years of history with me. Their financial future versus our relationship future. If you turn that phone on, I said quietly, if you take that call and let them pull you back into their damage control, then you've made your choice. Sarah. I'm going to pack a bag and stay at Claire's for a few days. Give you some time to think. I headed toward the bedroom, then stopped. But Jake? Don't take too long. Because I'm done waiting for you to decide if I'm worth fighting for. I could feel his eyes on me as I walked away, could practically hear the gears turning in his head. But I didn't look back. I couldn't afford to see him choose them again. Chunk 8. I'd been at Claire's apartment for 3 days when I made the mistake of Googling myself. It started innocently enough. I was applying for jobs, trying to rebuild the professional life I'd let revolve too much around Jake's family connections, when I noticed something weird. My LinkedIn profile views had spiked dramatically. Not the good kind of spike you get when recruiters are interested. The kind that makes your stomach drop. Sarah, you need to see this. Claire appeared in the doorway of her guest room, laptop in hand, her face grim. She'd been my rock since I'd shown up on her doorstep with a hastily packed suitcase and mascara streaks on my cheeks. Claire was the only friend who'd never been impressed by Jake's family money, the only one who'd consistently called out their subtle condescension when I was too blind to see it myself. What now? I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted to know. She turned the laptop toward me. The screen showed a private Facebook group called Greenwich Country Club Members. Somehow, she'd gotten screenshots from a mutual friend whose mother was a member. The post was from someone named Jennifer Blackwood, dated yesterday, * ladies, I feel compelled to share what happened at the Henley dinner party this weekend. Richard's son's girlfriend, the one from foster care we've discussed before, apparently had some sort of breakdown and assaulted Richard with a wine glass. Patricia is absolutely mortified. I always said that family was too generous giving that girl access to our social circle. Asterisk. The comments were worse. Dozens of them, dissecting my background, my appearance at various club events, my relationship with Jake. Women I'd smiled at and made small talk with for 2 years, tearing me apart with surgical precision. Asterisk. I heard she's been very aggressive about wedding planning. Red flag behavior. Asterisk. Asterisk. Someone said she grew up in multiple foster homes. That kind of instability always shows eventually. Asterisk. Asterisk. Richard was probably just trying to protect his son. Sometimes tough love is necessary. Asterisk. My hands were shaking as I scrolled. How did they even know about foster care? I never told anyone except Jake, Claire finished grimly. The betrayal hit fresh and sharp. Not just that he'd shared something so personal, but that it had been twisted into evidence of my fundamental unfitness for their world. My childhood, the thing I'd worked hardest to overcome, was being used as proof that Richard had been right about me all along. There's more, Claire said softly. She pulled up another tab. This one showed the website for Henley Consulting, Jake's father's firm. Normally it was a standard corporate site, all stock photos and buzzword-heavy content about strategic solutions and innovative partnerships. Now there was a banner across the top, asterisk. Henley Consulting is committed to the highest standards of professionalism and discretion in all business and personal matters. Asterisk. It was subtle, corporate speak for, please ignore the drama, we're still respectable business partners. But it was there, on the company website, a public acknowledgement that something had happened significant enough to require damage control. They're not just managing family gossip, I realized. They're managing their business reputation. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number, asterisk. This is Marcus Webb from the Blackstone Group. We should talk. Today if possible. Asterisk. I stared at the message, my brain struggling to process it. Marcus Webb was one of the senior partners in the company that was supposed to acquire Richard's firm. Why would he be contacting me directly? Claire read the text over my shoulder. That's weird, right? Before I could respond, another message came through, this one from Jake, asterisk. Sarah, please call me. Things are getting complicated and I need to explain. Asterisk. Then my work phone rang. My actual work phone, the one I'd been ignoring for 3 days while I hid at Claire's and tried to figure out my life. Sarah Chen. My voice came out steadier than I felt. Sarah, it's David. My boss, calling on a Saturday morning. Never a good sign. I need you to come in. We have a situation. What kind of situation? The kind where our biggest client is asking questions about your personal life. Can you be here in an hour? My blood went cold. Our biggest client was Morrison and Associates, the marketing firm that handled PR for several major Connecticut businesses. Including, I was now realizing with growing horror, some of the companies that did business with Henley Consulting. David, I can explain. 1 hour, Sarah. The line went dead. I looked at Claire, who'd been listening to my half of the conversation. Her expression had gone from concern to alarmed. They're not just trying to contain this, I said slowly, the pieces clicking into place. They're trying to destroy me. The Morrison and Associates office building felt like a tomb on Saturday morning. My footsteps echoed in the empty marble lobby as I rode the elevator to the 15th floor, my stomach churning with each passing floor. I'd thrown on the first professional outfit I could find at Claire's, a borrowed blazer that was too big and pants that were too short, but I doubted anyone would be critiquing my fashion choices today. David was waiting in the conference room with Linda Morrison herself, which told me everything I needed to know about how serious this was. Linda never came in on weekends. She barely came in on regular weekdays, preferring to manage her empire from her Hamptons estate. Sarah. David's greeting was carefully neutral. Thank you for coming in. Linda didn't bother with pleasantries. Sit down. We need to discuss your situation. I sat, forcing myself to maintain eye contact. What situation would that be? Don't be naive. It doesn't suit you. Linda slid a folder across the table. We received some interesting calls yesterday. Apparently, you become something of a topic of conversation in certain social circles. The folder contained printouts of the Facebook posts Claire had shown me, along with several others I hadn't seen. Someone had been busy documenting my assault on Richard, complete with speculation about my mental stability and professional competence. This is gossip, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. It has nothing to do with my work. Doesn't it? Linda leaned back in her chair. Because according to Jennifer Blackwood, whose husband sits on the board of Coastal Industries, one of our major accounts, you used your position here to gain access to high society events where you've been unstable. That's not what happened. Then tell me what did happen. Because right now, the story making rounds is that you're a social climber who manipulated your way into the Henley family, then had a violent breakdown when called out on it. The casual cruelty of it took my breath away. They'd taken the worst night of my life and turned it into a cautionary tale about letting the wrong kind of people into their circles. Richard Henley called me trailer trash in front of his entire family, I said quietly. After 2 years of pretending to tolerate me while mocking me behind my back. I threw a glass of wine. I didn't assault anyone. David shifted uncomfortably, but Linda's expression didn't change. Your version of events is irrelevant, she said. What matters is perception. And right now, the perception among our client base is that Morrison and Associates employs someone who brings personal drama into professional spaces. I never. You attended client events as Jake Henley's girlfriend. You networked using those connections. You blurred personal and professional lines, and now it's blowing up in ways that affect this company's reputation. I felt the walls closing in. What are you saying? Linda closed the folder. I'm saying we need to discuss your future here. The Henley situation has created complications we can't ignore. My phone buzzed insistently in my purse. Then again. And again. Through the conference room's glass walls, I could see other employees starting to arrive for what I now realized wasn't a normal Saturday. It was an emergency damage control session. How many clients have called? I asked. Enough, David said quietly. And what exactly are they saying? Linda and David exchanged a look that made my chest tighten. They're saying, Linda said slowly, that they're concerned about our judgment. Our hiring practices. Our ability to maintain discretion and professionalism. The message was crystal clear. I wasn't just being thrown under the bus, I was being positioned as the reason the bus had crashed in the first place. My phone buzzed again. This time, I looked. Another message from Marcus Webb, * Ms. Chen, this concerns the Blackstone-Henley situation. Time sensitive. Please respond. *. Whatever was happening, it was bigger than family drama now. And I was standing directly in the crossfire. My hands were shaking as I stepped out of the Morrison and Associates building. Linda had given me a choice that wasn't really a choice: take a voluntary leave of absence while they assess the situation, or face a formal review that would likely end my career in marketing. I had until Monday to decide. The irony wasn't lost on me. After years of fighting to prove I belonged in their world, I was being professionally destroyed by the very people who'd never wanted me there in the first place. I found myself walking aimlessly through downtown, my phone buzzing constantly with messages I couldn't bring myself to read. The city felt different now. Every well-dressed person on the street looked like they might know my story, might be judging me based on whatever version of events was circulating through Greenwich's social network. That's when I finally called Marcus Webb back. Ms. Chen, thank you for responding. His voice was crisp, businesslike. I'll get straight to the point. The Blackstone Group needs to understand exactly what happened at the Henley dinner before we proceed with our acquisition. I'm not sure what you want me to tell you. The truth would be refreshing. Because right now, we're hearing two very different stories. One involves an unstable woman attacking a respected businessman. The other involves that businessman having a pattern of, let's call them character issues that could affect his company's culture. My breath caught. What do you mean, pattern? Richard Henley isn't the only person we conduct due diligence on, Ms. Chen. When we acquire a company, we acquire its leadership, its reputation, its potential liabilities. And lately, we've been hearing some interesting stories about Mr. Henley's behavior at various social and professional functions. I stopped walking, standing frozen on the sidewalk as people flowed around me. You're investigating him? We're protecting our investment. A man who publicly humiliates women at dinner parties might do the same to female employees, clients, business partners. That's not the kind of liability Blackstone associates with. The pieces started clicking together. Richard wasn't just managing family drama, he was fighting for his professional life. And somehow, I'd become the catalyst that could destroy everything he'd worked for. What do you need from me? I asked. A detailed account of what happened. Names of witnesses. Any documentation of previous incidents. We'll be conducting interviews with other family members, but your perspective would be valuable. I thought about Miranda's horrified face as she revealed what she'd overheard at the country club. About Jake's Aunt Victoria calling to demand I apologize. About the Facebook posts positioning me as the unstable outsider who'd attacked poor, innocent Richard. There's something else, Marcus continued. We've received information that the Henley family has been actively working to discredit you professionally. Phone calls to business associates, social media campaigns, pressure on mutual connections. If that's accurate, it could constitute retaliation, which raises additional concerns about Mr. Henley's judgment. My phone beeped with another incoming call. Jake's name flashed on the screen. I need to think about this, I told Marcus. Of course. But Ms. Chen? Don't wait too long. The Henley family appears to be escalating their response, and you might find yourself needing allies sooner than you think. I hung up and stared at Jake's missed call notification. 17 missed calls now, plus dozens of texts I still hadn't read. But there was another notification that made my blood run cold. An email from my landlord with a subject line, urgent lease concerns. I opened it with trembling fingers. Sarah, I've received some disturbing calls about your tenancy. We need to discuss your lease renewal immediately. Please contact my office Monday morning, *. They weren't just coming for my job anymore. They were coming for my home. And suddenly, Marcus Webb's offer of alliance didn't sound like an opportunity, it sounded like survival. I made it exactly 2 blocks from my apartment building before I spotted the photographer. He was trying to be subtle, positioned across the street with a telephoto lens, but after 3 days of paranoia, I developed a sixth sense for being watched. The moment our eyes met through his viewfinder, he started snapping pictures rapidly. My phone rang immediately. Jake's name on the screen. Sarah, thank God. Where are you? Don't go home, there are reporters outside your building. Reporters? I ducked into a coffee shop, my heart hammering. What the hell is happening, Jake? The Blackstone story leaked. Someone told a business journalist about the acquisition being in jeopardy because of Dad's behavior. They're calling it Foster Kid Takes Down Greenwich Elite, it's everywhere. I pulled up Google on my phone with shaking fingers. The headlines made my stomach drop. Henley Consulting merger in crisis after heir's girlfriend exposes family dysfunction. From foster care to high society, the dinner party that destroyed a dynasty. * gold digger or whistleblower? The woman who brought down Connecticut's most powerful family *. Oh God, I whispered, scrolling through article after article. Someone had given the press everything, my background, details about the dinner, even quotes from country club members about Richard's previous comments. My entire life story was being dissected by strangers on the internet. Sarah, you need to know, I didn't tell them anything. But Miranda, she's been talking to journalists. She feels guilty about what happened and she's trying to set the record straight by sharing everything she's overheard over the years. I found the article featuring Miranda's quotes. She'd painted a devastating picture of Richard's systematic campaign against me, complete with specific examples of things he'd said at various social events. The journalist had corroborated her claims with other sources. Apparently, Richard's behavior toward women from lesser backgrounds was an open secret in Greenwich social circles. But the article that made my blood freeze was in the New York Post gossip section. * Mystery Woman's Revenge, How Sarah Chin Orchestrated the Perfect Takedown. *. It portrayed me as a calculating mastermind who deliberately provoked Richard, recorded the incident, and leaked everything to destroy his business deal. The writer had somehow gotten photos of me at various Henley family events over the past 2 years, analyzing my clothing choices and body language for signs of my supposed long-term manipulation. Jake, they're making me sound like some kind of criminal mastermind. I didn't orchestrate anything, I threw wine because I was humiliated and heartbroken. I know that. But my family, they're in full damage control mode. Dad hired a crisis management firm, and they're pushing back hard on the narrative. Pushing back how? The silence on the other end told me everything I needed to know. Jake. How are they pushing back? They're saying you've been unstable for months. That you've made threats before. That you deliberately sabotaged the dinner because you were angry about not being included in wedding planning. His voice was barely a whisper. Sarah, they're trying to have you committed for psychiatric evaluation. The coffee shop suddenly felt too small, too bright, too full of people who might recognize me from the photos now circulating online. Through the window, I could see 2 more people with cameras positioning themselves on the corner. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus Webb, asterisk situation escalating quickly. Blackstone pulling out of merger entirely. Richard Henley threatening legal action against multiple parties including you. We need to talk. Today. Asterisk. Another text, this one from a number I didn't recognize, asterisk this is Rebecca Torres from Channel 7 News. We'd like to offer you the opportunity to tell your side of the story before others control the narrative. Asterisk. Then another, asterisk Sarah, this is attorney James Morrison. We represent several parties interested in your recent experiences with the Henley family. Please call immediately. Asterisk. My phone was buzzing constantly now, journalists, lawyers, people claiming to be advocates for foster children who wanted to use my story. Everyone wanted a piece of the narrative, and I was losing control of my own life in real time. Jake, I said quietly, I need you to choose. Right now. Are you going to help them destroy me, or are you going to stop this? The pause that followed told me everything I needed to know about my future. The pause stretched so long I wondered if the call had dropped. When Jake finally spoke, his voice was hollow. Sarah, they've frozen my trust fund. I blinked, trying to process what that had to do with anything. What? My inheritance, my trust fund, everything. Dad called the family lawyer this morning. If I don't publicly support the family's version of events, I lose access to everything. The apartment, my car, my job at the firm, it's all tied to family money. The coffee shop seemed to tilt around me. So that's your answer? No, that's not, Sarah, you don't understand. They're not just threatening me. They're going after you criminally. Dad's lawyer thinks they can make a case for assault and harassment. They have witnesses who'll say you've been erratic, threatening. They're building a case to have you arrested. My hands went numb. The phone nearly slipped from my fingers. Arrested for what? Assault with a weapon. The wine glass. Corporate espionage, they think you leaked information to Blackstone. Stalking and harassment of a prominent businessman. Jake's voice was getting more frantic. Sarah, they have resources I never imagined. Private investigators, crisis management teams, lawyers who specialize in destroying people. They're not just trying to discredit you anymore. They want you gone. Through the coffee shop window, I watched a news van pull up to the corner. A perfectly coiffed reporter stepped out, scanning the street like a predator hunting prey. And where do you stand in all this? My voice came out steadier than I felt. I'm trying to protect you. I've been fighting with them all morning, trying to get them to back down, but they won't listen. They think if they can prove you're unstable and vindictive, it'll save the merger and their reputation. That's not what I asked. I asked where you stand. Another long pause. In the background, I could hear voices, urgent, angry conversations happening around Jake. His family's war room, probably. Strategic meetings about how to eliminate the threat I represented. I can't lose everything, Sarah. The trust fund isn't just money, it's my entire life, my career, my future. Without it, I'm nobody. There it was. After 2 years together, after promises and ring shopping and talks about our future, Jake had finally told me the truth. When forced to choose between his family's money and standing by the woman he claimed to love, money won. But I have a plan, he continued desperately. If you just lay low for a few weeks, let the media attention die down, maybe we can work something out privately. Maybe Dad will calm down and we can find a compromise. A compromise. I laughed, but it came out bitter. What kind of compromise, Jake? I apologize for being upset about being called trash. I promise to be grateful for their tolerance in the future. You're twisting this. No, I'm finally seeing it clearly. I stood up, gathering my purse. The photographer across the street had been joined by 2 others. You want me to disappear quietly so your family can rebuild their reputation and save their money. You want me to take the blame for this entire situation and fade away like a bad dream. That's not what I want. I want us to find a way through this together. Together? My voice rose enough that other customers turned to look. I lowered it, but the anger was still there. Jake, you've spent this entire conversation explaining why you can't stand up to them. You've spent 3 days letting them destroy me professionally and personally while you figured out how to protect your trust fund. Sarah, please. I'm hanging up now. And Jake? When your family's lawyers come after me, when their private investigators try to dig up dirt on my past, when their crisis management team plants more stories about my supposed mental instability, I want you to remember this moment. I want you to remember that you chose their money over protecting the person you claim to love. Don't do this. Sarah, don't. I ended the call and immediately blocked his number. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus Webb, asterisk emergency meeting. My office in 1 hour. Bring everything, texts, emails, any documentation of the Henley family's behavior. This is about to get much worse before it gets better. Asterisk. The news van across the street was joined by another. Reporters were setting up, preparing for what looked like extended coverage. Through the window, I could see them checking photos on their phones, probably pictures of me, trying to confirm they had the right location. I had maybe 5 minutes before they spotted me. And suddenly, Marcus Webb's office felt less like an option and more like the only safe harbor in a storm that was about to destroy everything I built. I made it to Marcus Webb's office building through a combination of back alleys and sheer luck. The Blackstone Group occupied 3 floors of a gleaming Manhattan tower, the kind of place where Richard Henley probably felt comfortable conducting his usual business. Today, though, the security in the lobby was tighter than usual, and I had to show ID twice before being escorted to the 32nd floor. Marcus Webb was younger than I'd expected, maybe 45, with a kind of sharp intelligence that made me understand why his firm had built its reputation on acquiring troubled companies and turning them around. His office overlooked Central Park, and under different circumstances, I might have been intimidated by the obvious wealth and power. Instead, I felt oddly calm. Maybe it was exhaustion, or maybe it was the clarity that comes from having absolutely nothing left to lose. Ms. Chen, thank you for coming. He gestured to a chair across from his desk. Before we begin, I need you to understand something. What I'm about to tell you doesn't leave this room unless you decide to act on it. I nodded, settling into the leather chair that probably cost more than my monthly rent. The Henley merger is dead. Completely. We pulled out this morning after receiving some very disturbing information from our investigation team. He opened a thick folder on his desk. But that's not why you're here. My stomach dropped. What do you mean? Richard Henley's crisis management firm has been busy. They planted stories with 3 major news outlets painting you as a woman who infiltrated their family with the specific goal of corporate espionage. They're claiming you've been secretly recording conversations, photographing documents, and passing information to competitors. The room tilted slightly. That's insane. I work in marketing, not corporate intelligence. I know that. You know that. But they've manufactured evidence that says otherwise. Marcus turned his laptop screen toward me. Doctored photos of you near Richard's home office. Fake email accounts that allegedly belong to you. Even fabricated financial records showing suspicious payments to your bank account. The images on the screen were sophisticated, photos from various family gatherings, edited to show me lurking near doorways or looking at papers on desks. In context, they painted a picture of someone systematically gathering intelligence over 2 years. This is sophisticated, I whispered, scrolling through the fabricated evidence. It gets worse. They've contacted your former foster families. They're digging up every difficult moment from your childhood, every time you moved between homes, every school disciplinary record, and spinning it into a narrative about a damaged person seeking revenge against successful families. My hands were shaking again. They can't do this. This is character assassination. They can and they are. Because here's what they've figured out, in today's media environment, the first story that gains traction becomes the truth. They're not trying to prove you're guilty in court. They're trying to make you so toxic that no one will listen to your version of events. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, I could see the city sprawling below. Somewhere down there, photographers were probably still camped outside my apartment. Reporters were calling my former colleagues for quotes. The Henley family's lawyers were building their case to paint me as an unstable criminal. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Marcus leaned back in his chair. Because Richard Henley made a mistake. In his rush to destroy you, he's revealed exactly how dangerous he really is. The kind of man who would orchestrate this level of character assassination against someone who embarrassed him at a dinner party isn't someone Blackstone wants to be in business with. So this helps you. But what does it do for me? That depends. How badly do you want to fight back? I stared at him, trying to read between the lines. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting that Richard Henley has underestimated who he's dealing with. He thinks because you grew up in foster care, because you don't have family money or connections, that you're powerless. Marcus smiled, and for the first time since this nightmare began, I saw something that looked like hope. But he's forgotten that people who've had to fight for everything they have tend to be very good at fighting. My phone buzzed with yet another unknown number. Then another. The media frenzy was intensifying by the hour. What exactly are you proposing? I asked carefully. A partnership. You help us document every aspect of Richard's retaliation campaign. We help you survive it. He slid a business card across the desk. But understand, if we do this, there's no going back. The Henley family will throw everything they have at both of us. I picked up the card, feeling the weight of the decision settling on my shoulders. Outside, storm clouds were gathering over the city, and I realized this was the moment everything would change. The question was whether I was ready to fight back as dirty as they were willing to fight. I stared at Marcus Webb's business card, my thumb tracing the embossed letters. Outside his office windows, the storm clouds had opened up, rain streaking down the glass like tears. What kind of partnership? I asked finally. Marcus opened another folder, this one thicker than the first. Richard Henley isn't just a classist dinner party bully. Our investigation uncovered a pattern of behavior that goes back years. Female employees who were mysteriously fired after rejecting his advances. Business partners' wives who were systematically excluded from social events after refusing his attention. Competitors who found themselves facing sudden IRS audits or regulatory scrutiny after crossing him. My blood went cold. You're saying this is what he does to people? I'm saying you're not his first target. You're just the first one who might have the resources to fight back. He slid a photograph across the desk. This is Jennifer Martinez. She worked at Henley Consulting 3 years ago as a senior analyst. Brilliant woman, MBA from Wharton, but she came from a working-class family in Queens. The photo showed a young Latina woman in professional attire, smiling confidently at what looked like a company event. She was beautiful, polished, successful-looking. Richard made several inappropriate advances. When she reported him to HR, she was suddenly under investigation for embezzlement. Charges were eventually dropped, but her reputation was destroyed. She's working retail now because no one in finance will hire her. He showed me another photo. This is David Kim, former business partner who refused to exclude his wife from client events after Richard complained she was too ethnic for their brand. Suddenly faced a $1 million lawsuit for contract violations that bankrupted his company. The pattern was becoming sickeningly clear. Richard Henley didn't just look down on people he considered beneath him, he actively destroyed them when they didn't stay in their place. How many others? I whispered. We've documented 17 cases over the past decade. Different tactics, but the same basic approach: character assassination, professional sabotage, social isolation. Marcus closed the folder. The man is a predator who uses his wealth and connections as weapons. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Sarah, this is Detective Morrison from Greenwich PD. We need to speak with you regarding charges filed this morning. Please contact our office immediately. I I showed Marcus the message. His jaw tightened. They're moving faster than I expected, he said, pulling out his own phone. Lisa? I need you to contact our legal team immediately. The Henley situation just escalated. While he spoke to his assistant, I stared at the detective's message, my mind reeling. Actual criminal charges. Not just social media assassination or professional sabotage, they were trying to have me arrested. What charges? I asked when Marcus hung up. I'll find out within the hour. But Sarah, you need to understand something. His voice was grave. If you walk out of here and try to handle this alone, Richard Henley will destroy you completely. He has unlimited resources, no moral boundaries, and a proven track record of crushing people who threaten his world order. Thunder rumbled outside, and the rain was coming down harder now. But if we work together, if you're willing to be the one person who finally stands up to him with equal firepower behind you, we can stop him from doing this to anyone else. I thought about Jennifer Martinez working retail with her Wharton MBA. About David Kim's destroyed company. About all the other people who'd been systematically crushed for the crime of not knowing their place. Then I thought about Jake, probably sitting in his family's crisis management meeting right now, choosing his trust fund over protecting me. What do you need me to do? Marcus smiled grimly. First, we keep you out of jail. Then we show Richard Henley what happens when he picks the wrong target. My phone rang. Detective Morrison's name flashed on the screen. The war was about to begin. 6 months later. The courtroom was packed when Richard Henley III was sentenced to 18 months in federal prison for witness intimidation, conspiracy to commit fraud, and violation of civil rights. I sat in the gallery watching the man who'd called me trash led away in handcuffs, and felt empty. Not triumphant. Not vindicated. Just tired. The criminal charges against me had been dropped within a week once Marcus's legal team presented evidence of the fabricated documents and witness tampering. The civil suit I'd filed, backed by Blackstone's resources and representing 17 other victims, had resulted in a $12 million settlement and Richard's complete professional destruction. But the real victory had come 3 months earlier, in a much smaller courtroom. Jake had finally chosen a side, his family's, right until the end. He testified in their defense during the civil proceedings, claiming I'd been increasingly unstable and had manipulated my way into their family. Watching him lie under oath, seeing him parrot his father's talking points about my background and mental state, had been the final death of whatever love I'd had left for him. The restraining order I'd gotten against the entire family would expire next month, but I wouldn't be renewing it. They were no longer powerful enough to hurt me. My phone buzzed with a text from Claire, asterisk saw the news. How are you holding up? Asterisk. Free, I texted back. Asterisk finally free. Asterisk. Outside the courthouse, reporters were waiting, but I'd learned to navigate media attention over the past 6 months. Marcus had connected me with an excellent publicist who'd helped reshape the narrative from unstable gold digger to whistleblower who exposed systematic abuse. The foster care advocacy work I'd started had given me a platform that felt genuinely meaningful. Ms. Chen. A reporter called out. How does it feel to see justice served? I paused on the courthouse steps, looking back at the building where Richard Henley's empire had finally crumbled. It feels like accountability, I said carefully. For too long, powerful people have been able to destroy others without consequences. Today that changed. What's next for you? I smiled, and for the first time in months, it felt genuine. I start my new job Monday. Director of Communications for the Foster Care Advocacy Coalition. The position paid more than I'd ever made and gave me the chance to help kids who'd grown up like me navigate systems designed to keep them out. Any regrets about how this all played out? I thought about Jake, probably drinking away his trust fund in some expensive bar, his reputation as tattered as his father's. I thought about Patricia, whose social standing had evaporated along with her husband's business. I thought about the family that had once seemed so powerful, so untouchable. Just one, I said honestly. I regret that it took me 2 years to realize I was worth more than their approval. As I walked down the courthouse steps toward my new life, I felt something I hadn't experienced since childhood, the absolute certainty that I belonged exactly where I was, that no one could take that away from me ever again. My phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. For a split second, my chest tightened, old habits from months of harassment and threats. But this message made me smile. Asterisk Ms. Chen, this is Maria Santos from the Times. I'm working on a story about second chances and rebuilding after public scandals. Would you be interested in sharing how you've moved forward? Asterisk. I looked up at the gray December sky, feeling snowflakes beginning to fall. Then I typed back, asterisk I'd be honored to. Because the best revenge isn't destroying the people who hurt you, it's building something so beautiful they can never touch it. Asterisk. And for the first time since this whole nightmare began, I felt genuinely excited about tomorrow.